These paddles are playing with my head because I think they're the first full foam core 14 millimeter paddles that feel, play, and perform similar to a Gen 3 16 millimeter build. Big dwell without crazy power, like you can swing hard through the ball and you don't have a rocket or a ton of mass, but it's quite controllable. So even if you're a dedicated singles player, I can see this paddle being a value add because you can swing out without worrying about launching the ball. And that's not typical for 14 millimeter builds, and it's worth understanding why. Full disclosure, SpeedUp sent me these paddles to test with no strings attached, no money changed hands. I'm not obligated to create content for them, and these are my honest impressions. They will retail for right around $160, launches right around February 24th. You'll be able to buy them at speeduppickle.com and use code NPB for 10% off at checkout, which will also help to support this channel. So what makes the Tide different from other 14 millimeter foam core paddles? It starts with the core, MPP foam or microcellular polypropylene technology. According to SpeedUp's founder, the design intent is that MPP's microcell structure should be less prone to performance drift than air cell foams like EPP. The stated concern with air-filled cell structures is that with repeated impacts, they can be more prone to cell collapse, meaning the material response changes over time. The claim here is that MPP stiffens slightly as it's played, then stabilizes rather than fading. Now, I can't verify that in a lab, but I can tell you what the engineering rationale is. They wanted power that stays consistent across the paddle's life, not something that peaks early and dies after a few weeks. The perimeter ring is TPE or thermoplastic elastomer. They intentionally avoided EVA. Why? TPA rebounds back better, resists breakdown, and according to SpeedUp, it adds some dwell to balance the core stiffness. The face construction is 3 carbon fiber layers with different orientations. The top layer sits at 45 degrees, the other two run at 90 degrees and roughly 135 degrees relative to the top layer. The angled top layer was a deliberate choice to soften the natural stiffness of this build without killing rebound speed. Think of it as taking the edge off without making it mushy. And you can see that 45-degree layer right on the top surface. The surface is coarse peel-ply carbon fiber. The handle is fully molded polyurethane, slim at about 4.125 inches around. All Tide paddles are 14 millimeters. 3 shapes available: elongated, hybrid, and wide body. I tested both the elongated and the hybrid, and I'm focusing primarily on the hybrid today, the 14H model, because the elongated was just too heavy for me in stock form. Swing weight came in at 124.65 on the elongated, which is heavier to swing than 97% of the paddles in my database. It's also head heavy, and playing doubles, it felt like extra work. If you're already comfortable with heavy setups and want maximum baseline power from a 14 millimeter paddle, or if you play a lot of singles, the elongated delivers. I'm not that player though, so the hybrid is where this paddle makes sense for me. The major design goal here was durability and consistency over time. The intent was predictable power that holds up, not just a hot, out-of-the-box paddle that dies months later. Whether that holds up long-term, I can't say yet, but that's the engineering direction, and so far, it's held up. I'll put all the performance data and specs on the screen now, but let me walk through what matters for this hybrid. The Tide 14H weighs 8.05 ounces, that's basically average. Swing weight is 112.2, which is below average, quick through the zone. Twist weight is 6.25, also below average. Bounce point sits at 23.7 centimeters, which is below average, so it's handle weighted. Surface roughness measured 8.32 micrometers, which is objectively high. That's legitimately textured. Firepower score is 81, control score is 53. For context, I also tested the elongated, the 14L. The static weight is 8.35 ounces, swing weight is 124.65, bounce point at 25 centimeters, and it's very head heavy. Firepower score is 80, control score is 20. Serve speed and punch volley numbers were similar to the hybrid, but that swing weight made it feel like work in extended play. If you already gravitate toward heavier paddles and want the most baseline output from this line, the elongated is there. But I found it too heavy, so I'm sticking with the hybrid. From the first few hits with the hybrid, the sound caught my attention. Deep thud on contact. almost like a broken-in 16mm mod. But the rebound was faster. You get that pocketing sensation, that brief moment where you feel the ball settle into the face, but it comes off quicker because it's still 14mm. Launch angle threw me off early. I was dumping balls into the net until I opened my paddle face slightly. Not a huge adjustment, but it was noticeable until I dialed it in. Once I got my swing path sorted out, the paddle played predictably and as I expected. Serves and drives are clean, the textured face gives good bite on topspin shots, and flat serves carried without needing perfect timing. What I observed was above average pace with good control. At the net, the hybrid was fast. It's got a low swing weight and it moves quickly in hand exchanges. Punch volleys had snap, redirects are controlled, resets had enough touch to keep them soft when needed. Off-center hits are noticeable. That twist weight at 6.25 is below average, so you will feel mishits more than you would on a paddle with higher stability. It's not a huge issue, but it's worth mentioning. Spin was solid. The face is legitimately textured. 8.32 micrometers is high. And you can feel the ball grab on all types of topspin shots. But measured spin sits around average in my database, which, to be clear, is good. Don't read into that number. The face gives you plenty of bite, and I'd say the surface texture is holding up better than average. Now, one observation kept showing up in my notes. This paddle has more dwell than you'd expect from a 14mm build, way more. You get time to feel the ball in the face, time to adjust launch angle or add spin, but the rebound is still crisp. That's the MPP foam and TPE ring doing what they're designed to do, softening the response without making it sluggish. And honestly, that's what makes this paddle different. Baseline drives, now, this is where it got interesting and also fun, especially for a 14mm build. You can swing hard through the ball without launching it long. Obviously, there's a skill and technique thing there, but again, this plays like a 16mm core in my assessment more than it does a 14mm core. The hybrid is easier to keep on a tighter leash than the elongated. What that means in practice is the hybrid gives you more margin for error. But here's the thing, the hybrid didn't hit as hard off the baseline as the elongated, and that makes sense. Lower swing weight, lower balance point. But the hybrid needs help if you want it to match the elongated's drive output. The hybrid felt light to me right out of the box. Not unusably light, but light enough that I thought about adding weight immediately. The hybrid does have room to grow with weight for more output and stability. 3 grams to the sides is all I added. A 3-gram strip from Pickleball, and that raised the twist weight to 6.5 and improved stability quite a bit. The elongated didn't need any weight, or rather, I couldn't handle adding any. It's already sitting at 8.35 ounces with a swing weight of 124.65. If anything, some players might want to reduce weight to improve maneuverability, but that's a different conversation. I noticed no break-in period to speak of. Both paddles felt consistent from the first hit. So I think this paddle is ideal for players who want a 14mm foam build with strong pop and predictable response. You need to be comfortable with the hybrid's lighter swing weight or willing to add weight if you want more baseline output. It's ideal for players who value hand speed at the kitchen and who also want a textured face for a variety of spin-based shots. You're someone who can also generate your own power and doesn't need the paddle to do all the work. It's not ideal for players who want absolute baseline power without adding weight. It's not for players who prefer a normal low launch angle without an adjustment period. That early launch angle thing is real, and you need to be okay with dialing it in. The deciding factor, if you want a 14mm paddle that plays with more dwell and control than typical 14mm builds, if you want something that feels closer to a 16mm Gen 3 but with the speed of 14mm, the Tide 14H delivers. If you need heavy baseline output in stock form without customization, I think there are better options. And if you're comfortable with high swing weight, the elongated exists, but it wasn't for me. The elongated Tide 14L is the power option. High swing weight, head-heavy balance, delivers pace off the baseline, but it's heavy, really heavy for a 14mm paddle. If you're already comfortable with that kind of mass distribution and want a 14mm foam paddle with serious drive output, the elongated works. I found it too heavy for my liking in doubles play. Your mileage may vary. Want reach and baseline pace? Go elongated. Want hand speed and control? Go hybrid. There's also a wide body option, but I didn't test it for this review. At around $160, the Tide sits below most premium foam launches, but above entry-level Gen 3 options. It's playing in upper mid to high output territory, not quite Black Opal or J6CR levels of absolute power, but competing surprisingly well given the thinner profile and lower price point. So that's it. That's the SpeedUp Tide 14H and Cameo 14L review. This is a well-built foam paddle with a unique response profile, predictable power that's designed to hold up over time, and a textured face that gives you solid spin. The hybrid is the speed option, the elongated is the power option, and both shapes benefit from thoughtful engineering choices that prioritize consistency over raw output. If you want a 14mm paddle that doesn't play like every other 14mm paddle out there, the Tide 14H is worth testing. Just be ready to dial in that launch angle early on, and consider adding weight if you want more baseline output. The paddle has room for it, and honestly, I think it plays better with some customization. So, would I recommend it? If you value control and hand speed in a power-leaning package, yes. If you don't like 14mm paddles, I'd still say no. But just know, this one might change your mind. Okay, so now that's it. If you want to grab one, head to speeduppickle.com and use code NPB for 10% off. If you found this review helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.